Hey, it's JJ Virgin, and welcome to the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show, where I give you the latest cutting-edge intel to help you look, feel, and think better. Now, today's show is all about bone broth. I know we've talked about it with my gal, Dr. Kellyanne, and we're bringing on another one of our friends in the mix today, Dr. Chef Lance. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He has been awesome. It's just an awesome resource source for me out here in San Diego because he's a local guy and he's a chef. So I actually have him come and he caters and cooks for all of my events, which is just fantastic because I never need to worry about the food being Virgin Diet and Sugar Impact Diet compliant, but also it's amazing tasting. Like no one would ever go, oh my gosh, this is healthy food. It's just fabulous, incredible, unprocessed, whole, delicious food. But one of the things he always brings to the party that's, I never would have thought of, honestly, is he always brings bone broth, and it's a super hit. Who would have thunk? So we're going to be talking about bone broth and why you'd want to serve it at your party and why you want to have it every day and what you should look for and why you can't get it in a can. So let me share a little bit about my buddy, Chef Lance. He's going to tell you more about his background when he gets on because I honestly never knew anything about it before talking to him. But he has been a chef for a long, long time, and he has a really cool mission. You don't see this with most chefs. His mission is he really holds to this whole principle that food is medicine. And his mission, his big purpose is to help heal the planet one GI tract at a time. So you can see why I just dig him so much. His vision behind all this is to restore and preserve the art and craft of producing nutrient-dense, nourishing bone broth. And he makes all sorts of yummy, wonderful varieties of bone broth. And again, I kind of have my freezer stocked full of them. So super excited to share this information with you and answer a lot of the questions that kind of have been in the back of my mind for a while about this and really how to know what you should be doing, whether you should be buying it or making it, what to look for, all that stuff. So again, I'm excited to introduce Chef Lance to you. All right, let's do it, Chef Lance. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here with me today.
I am so glad to be with you, JJ, and it's been great working with you so far. I
know. I just got to get you to move in. That's my purpose. Like, that's it. Next time you come over to cook, you're just we're locking you in. So
I'm there.
I feel super fortunate to have you around. And it's really fun to have someone come over and, cater and cook and be a chef at a party and bring bone broth. And so you've been really a force out there bringing great bone broth out to the world. Let's dive into that. First off, I don't really know anything about your background, Chef. Have you always been a chef, or did you have some kind of crazy, were you a circus performer? Where did this all come from, and how the heck did you get into bone broth?
All right, that's great. I've been a chef actually, JJ, for 30 years. So pretty much my whole life, adult life. And even prior to that, I was always had, that divine gift we all get, and mine was cooking, food, tasting. Even as a kid, I was always in the teens, oh, Lance, you bring the sandwiches, And I was always making great sandwiches. And then a fun note for everyone out there, I did get my cooking career started on the Grateful Dead tour, mid-'80s, selling hummus sandwiches from parking lot to parking lot to make it to different shows while I was at college. So that was a fun factoid for everyone. And then out of college, I kind of did a few things, and then I jumped right into my passion, which was cooking. And I got into some amazing restaurants with amazing chefs on the east coast of Long Island, eastern end of Long Island, and then eventually moved to California and got some more training. Eventually ended up in a culinary school here in San Diego, teaching professionally. Got certified as an executive chef with the East American Culinary Federation. And in 2007, I started this business, the Flavor Chef Inc., and now incorporated then just the Flavor Chef. And in 2007 or 2006, I met a gentleman named Paul Check, who I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
I know this story.
Yeah, Paul Chek. It all goes back to Paul Chek. Everything in my life, basically, at this point, 2006, I was going through let's say, a divine transformation known as divorce, and I was regathering my life. And my good friend, introduced me to the Chek Institute and Paul Chek, and I started doing what I do for you. I started cooking for him and his people, and I do to this day. And so he handed me a book, The Nourishing Traditions by the Weston A. Price Foundation, which is a big, the early true slow food movement, the real food movement. They've been around for a long time. And Paul said, look, you need to cook out of this book for my people. It's all whole food. It's all organic. And of course, I started reading about bone broth in that book and the benefits of this amazing elixir that I was making. We called it stock, and we did make broth as well. But bone broth in particular is designed to heal. We add copious amounts of bones and vegetables. We simmer it for extra long periods of time at extra low temperature to gently extract all the nutrient density out of the bones and vegetables using beautiful spring water, and then we consume it. So that's kind of the inspiration came. Truthfully, the inspiration came really at a moment in time on 11/11/07, and I was just inspired and told to bring bone broth to the market. And at that point in time, there was no frozen fresh bone broths on the market. There were different various things people were selling, but and so I embarked on my challenge, and by 2011, I had some bone broth frozen in a couple of different local markets, and by 2012, I had a CDPH food license to make and distribute, and I was in about 10 local retailers in San Diego. And in October of 2012, you will know these two people, Krista Arecchio and Sean Croxton. Krista introduced me to Sean, and I got onto his Underground Wellness Radio podcast, talking about organic bone broth and talking about all the wonderful things that bone broth do. And ever since then, we've been making bone broth and selling bone broth. So
there you go. So I got to ask that. We're going to talk a lot about bone broth and why you should actually drink it. But what's the difference? I mean, this is so obvious, but I really want people to understand this. The difference between, say, a little broth cube that you buy at the store, Campbell's soup that you get in the can, what's the difference between that and bone broth?
You got first of all, we got the processed food movement involved here. And when you talk about Campbell's soup, canned soups, and bouillon cubes and potentially powders of any kind really are just highly processed. Bone broth itself, like I said earlier, is a product that really has been consumed culturally, traditionally around the globe with, indigenous peoples of different areas and lands making bone from different animals making bone broth from animals they were either raising or catching wildly. And then the idea was to actually utilize the entire animal. So they would get done eating the meats and preserving them, and then they would throw the bones and skin and ligaments and cartilage all into a big pot, simmer it with their delicious local water, and usually added herbs and vegetables, and then took that last final extraction and started to drink the bone broth. So the big difference is the care and the purpose of making the bone broth. So the purpose of making bone broth with our at bonebroth.com is to heal the planet one GI tract at a time. That's literally our stated mission. And so by doing that, we set up ourselves up with using Palomar Mountain spring water and using a process that was traditional process, which again, you could read about Nourishing Broth or Nourishing Traditions, both from the Weston A. Price Foundation or Heather Dane's book, The Bone Broth Secret, and written with Louise Hay. And you could talk about this process of actually making this beautiful thing, whereas you get into a highly processed food like canned soups, and you've got minimal protein, minimal nutrient density, just something convenient that people can throw into their thing. Lots of MSG and high, additives and preservatives and things, and plenty, usually huge amounts of salt to mask all the flavors in there. So that's the biggest difference right there, JJ.
And so why is this such a big deal to drink? Like what
Well,
happens when we drink it? Like what are the big benefits? How often should someone be drinking this, etc.?
yeah, so the huge benefits, especially for your audience, is bioavailability of nutrient dense collagen, amino acids, minerals, fatty acids, and these little things like glucosamines. Sorry, I got that word wrong. But anyway, the point is yeah, it's nutrient dense, bioavailable. Collagen is the big deal, and that's going to be type 1, type 2, and type 3 because of the way we make the bone broth. And the reason you're going to be consuming bone broth is to, again, mostly a lot of people we know right now are struggling with autoimmune disorders, struggling with a lot of gut issues. This has been huge lately, and this is basically a result of a toxic environment where people have just been eating crappy food. Truthfully, the SAD diet, they've been consuming over-processed food, drinking way too much coffee, way too much soda, things that are just tearing apart the intestinal lining. And when we consume bone broth, we begin the healing. I trademarked the term broth is good for you, promotes a healthier you in 2008. And that whole idea was that this collagen that we're getting from the bone broth, this bioavailable collagen that your body instantly recognizes as something it can utilize, is going in and literally healing and sealing the gut lining and beginning to repair the damage that's been done. And what I like to say is, that begins the process. The immune system is about 80% or more located in your gut system. So you can imagine if you can start to heal that system, then you'll start to you'll naturally boost your immunity, and that will naturally help you in your challenges, in any kind of health challenges you might be facing. So it's not a panacea. A lot of people right now are trying to say, it's a miracle pill. It's not a miracle pill. It's a food that should be consumed on a regular basis for healthy
What's
people.
regular? Like, is this a daily thing? When should you do it?
Yeah, I think it's a daily thing for most people if you can afford it. And ours is certainly affordable, but you can, drink a cup a day if you're on a nice health regimen. I know our friends, Dr. Kellyanne and other people like her have a 21-day broth detox cleanse where you're drinking broth for intermittent fasting. And what we're finding with the broth is people aren't so hungry, because it's got a big protein component. It's got the amino acid component, which builds the proteins in your body. And it also helps the amino acids also help to detoxify your body. So at the same time, you're doing all this stuff. And the bone broth is literally helping you to accomplish your goals. It's what they used to call a protein sparer. In other words, you didn't need as much protein in your diet, and it helps with food cravings and food, overeating and things, because you'll tend to be satiated when you have a cup of bone broth. It's basically an experience that you have with the product, and then you feel better. And of course, if you're drinking bone broth, you're probably working with someone and working on improving your life. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had to go do a colonoscopy. Yay! But the thing that was freaking me out the most about it was, not being able to eat for a day because I wasn't going to do all the crazy, like I'm not drinking apple juice. Oh my gosh, So the stuff they said to drink, I'm like, I'm not doing that. But I just had bone broth all day long. I just did chicken bone broth, no problem at all.
Right.
No issue. I mean, it wasn't like that wasn't hard at all. Maybe I should just do this once a week, which I know is a big part of what Kellyanne teaches. So it totally works. It's fantastic and it's delicious. So my big question is going out to the store. So, first off, is there a real benefit to sitting down and making your own bone broth, or is it just fine to go and buy it? I mean, do you lose anything in not making it yourself?
Well, again, we encourage people to make their own bone broth if they can do a few things. First of all, if they can source quality bones, meaning beef, it would be grass.
How do you do that?
Again, it used to be easier than it is now because all the bones are being consumed by the bone broth companies. But you go to your store and you find a local farmer, and again, it's a tedious process. I will say straight off that after 5 years of being in this business, about 95% of the people we encounter do not want to make bone broth. They love bone broth. They believe in bone broth. They even make bone broth, but they're really glad they don't have to. So we're talking about a small percentage of people that will actually make bone broth. And of course, there's many resources on how to do that. And, it's basically like Kellyanne's book. It's like, it's fast food. You just throw the bones in the pot, throw in some vegetables, turn it on, and let it simmer at a real low temperature for 12 to 24 hours. And that's how you make it. But again, people, then there's we get these oh, I don't like the smell in the house. My husband doesn't like it, all these different reasons. So when you're talking about a convenience of particularly a certified organic, super well-made product like my own with Palomar Mountain spring water, which I am the only broth on the planet that uses spring water to make it, at least recorded. And so that's a big difference. Of course, in those traditional homes, in those traditional cultures, the mom, the grandma, the father is actually simmering the bones in water with vegetables and herbs over long periods of time to feed their family and their community. So that's pretty typically happening right now. There's lots of people that are popping up all over making bone broth and making decent bone broth. So it's a good thing to know. And where it comes to our bonebroth.com, again, we just have our amazing products we've been making for 5 years. We have some products that people probably don't want to make. Like we have our AIP product, which is just carrots, celery, parsley, water, and bones. So it takes out some of the other things people might be sensitive to. And we also even have a 2-hour product that is for really low glutamates. But again, so you want to be, clear that, if you want to make it, that's great. I personally believe in the frozen fresh model of bone broth because it's just the way it's always been done. So.
And how long does it stay good in your freezer?
Yeah, again, the freezing shelf life is typically 6 months. Of course, we say broth is good for you, promotes a healthy you, but only when you drink it. So we hope you don't have to keep it in there that long. When you defrost bone broth, you have 5 to 7 days to consume it. And then if you can, with our product, it's consumable straight out of the package. So you take it out and put it in a pot, bring it to temperature and season it with a little salt and drink away. And have that experience of drinking the bone broth. Having that cup and that feeling of love and nourishment. This is about, we were talking about nourishment, and just nourishing your body, nourishing your soul, and even just taking the time to sit and enjoy, a meal. And including in that meal. And of course, bone broth, too, when you add it to your diet, JJ, and people should know this, the gelatin actually helps digest the other food that you're eating as well. So it ends up being a digestive aid, and certain people have lots of trouble digesting food in different ways, whether it's meat or vegetables. The bone broth will be a natural aid in that digestive process.
It actually is one thing that we taught when I was on the Dr. Phil show for a couple years, and we had everyone start their meals with something that was high nutrient value, high density, and one of the key things we used was back then we just called it soup, right? But it was to do broth because it helps you feel full. It slows everything down. You're sitting. A lot of times we dive in. I know I do this. I dive in and I'm going, oh my gosh, that was I just steamrolled through that food. And it just kind of gets you more into this mindset of eating mindfully and slowly and et cetera. I also will tell you I never would have thought of serving bone broth at parties, but now it's been kind of a staple at our events and people love it. So it's a big hit.
We can all thank our good friend, Dr. Kellyanne, for bringing that to the forefront, truthfully. She's been a major player in the market, and the Bone Broth Diet is an incredible book, and I don't mind giving her a plug because she's been a good friend and a good friend of yours and a good friend to Mindshare and all your peeps out there. But, again, we there's different things happening out there in the bone broth world, and I just suggest that people drink actual bone broth, when they can, and do what they need to do to consume bone broth. And, especially when they're in challenges, a lot of health practitioners, we have acupuncturists, naturopathic doctors, chiropractors, all kinds of Chinese herbalists. These are all people that have been always supporting bone broth and supporting the use of bone broth. Like you said with Dr. Phil, having this nice consumable product that's, again, Paul Check and I sat there once drinking this, and he's just it's a food. So the food hits you on a molecular level. And when it does that, you do feel satiated and you feel comforted. And that's why it's been such a great comfort food over the history as well. Someone's infirm, they drink bone broth, or they drink a cup of soup that their loved one has made for them, and it just makes them feel good, because there's there's an energy there. I mean, we coined the term as well, love is the ultimate spice. And what that kind of means, it's an energy. Love is an energy that we all believe in. And when we put that love into the food, we have a healing aspect to that as well. So
I'm throwing a curveball at you.
Sure, go for it.
And you're not allowed, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, you can't answer this question with bone broth.
Okay.
Not allowed. So, what besides bone broth is the one thing that you do every day that you feel makes the biggest difference in your life?
Proper hydration has been the biggest factor recently, meaning I start the day with a quart of warm water with about a half to a whole lemon in there. And depending on your size, you could drink more or less. And then I try to drink about 3 more quarts after that. And I've found that as I've regulated my hydration, my appetite has been suppressed and I don't find myself starving. A lot of times we'll say, oh, we're starving, when really you're just thirsty. And I think most people would agree that America is quite dehydrated at this point. So that's my number one health tip. That will always ask me, and that's the number one thing. But I will add one more, and that is to love yourself, forgive yourself for things. I think we spend a lot of time beating ourselves up, and we can just realize we're here and we're loved, and we can spend some time loving ourselves and forgiving ourselves for maybe things we've done or not done, and enjoy the now, enjoy the present of being with ourselves.
I want to make sure everybody knows how to jump in here with bone broth, because you probably heard this. If you aren't, I bet a lot of people listening are actually kind of in bone broth mode, because we've been talking a lot about it on the show. Obviously, I talk a lot about gut. So this is a key thing for great hair, skin, and nails, for a healthy gut, for weight loss, for detoxifying, for recovering from surgery. But you can dive in. We have a 10% off coupon and more info on everything you want to know about bone broth. If you go to jjvirgin.com/bone broth, made it easy, jjvirgin.com/bone broth. So you can get more info and a 10% off coupon to get started with Chef Lance's bone broth, which I actually have some sitting in my fridge right now, nice. Ready to drink. There you go. Yeah, I really did. I just went to the freezer this morning, pulled some out because I just came home last night. So it's like super, super convenient for me because I travel all the time. So big thanks to you, Chef Lance. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next party with your bone broth, and I super appreciate you.
Thank you, and I appreciate you. I can't wait to be up there. I'll let Tim and Carl know that I'll be there.
Alrighty, now after the break, I'm going to be answering a listener's questions, so stay with me.
Fact: the true cause of weight gain is not calories, it's food intolerance. A negative reaction to certain foods, even foods you thought were healthy, can lead to a variety of symptoms including weight gain, acne, bloating, and lack of energy. The solution is simple: avoid the foods your body doesn't tolerate. But which foods? That's the secret JJ reveals in her book, The Virgin Diet: Drop 7 Foods, Lose 7 Pounds, Just 7 Days. Discover the sneaky 7 foods by visiting jjvirgin.com/books and be on your way to losing 7 pounds in just 7 days.
Welcome back. This is the time where I answer a listener's question. And by the way, I pull these off of our social media a lot of the time. So we get some sent to customer service, but a lot of times we see these posted on Facebook at my JJ Virgin official page, or you jump on my Facebook Live or post them into my Instagram. So we're watching, and we want to be your ultimate resource for health. So if you've got a question, you can always pop on over to my Facebook page at JJ Virgin Official or Instagram at JJ Virgin and post it there, and we'll grab it. And we're always looking for ones that fit in well with what's been going on in the show today. So this one is one that, gosh, near and dear to my heart because of what's gone on with my son Grant Virgin and all of the surgeries he's had to have after being hit by a car while out walking. And then with me having to have a total knee replacement after hurting my knee when I was 17, having 5 surgeries, and then just kind of hanging on for a long, long time until I finally the joint collapsed so much I had to do something about it. So Karen from Simi Valley asked in social media on Facebook, she wanted to know what to do. It's JJ, I'm going in to have surgery on my knee. I was like, me too. And I'd love to know what I can do to help me prepare for and recover from surgery. So I love the fact that this question came up because bone broth obviously is something that can super help here because the collagen and the amino acids really help with repair. One of the things you really want to think about when you're having any kind of surgery is that you want to make sure that you have sufficient and optimal, really, protein on board. So you're going to up your protein intake a little bit, and you want to really make sure it's bioavailable and high quality. So the 2 places I'm going to focus on are bone broth, a high quality bone broth, and also my Paleo-Inspired all-in-one shake, because it is actually concentrated bone broth protein with added branch chain amino acids. So you're getting bioavailable protein, amino acids, collagen, everything that you need to help you heal. So those are the key things, like if I had to pick importance, that's going to be first, is to really make sure that you're giving your body the building blocks that it needs to heal. And where I normally tell people that per your body weight, think about, a half of a gram of protein per pound of body weight. I would take this up to 3/4 of a gram of protein per pound of body weight here. So crank that up some to help here. And a couple other things that can be super important here. Number 1 would be, of course, all of that bioavailable protein that you're going to get in both the Paleo-Inspired shake and bone broth. Number 2, and it's also great because you might feel a little bleh, not really want to eat, so this is helpful. Number 2 is going to be make sure you're getting good sleep. If you're having any issues there, because sometimes I can get a little bit thrown off my cycles with this, I'll use my Sleep Candy product to help me get and stay asleep. But the other thing that I see with a lot of people is that they get constipated, especially if you have to take any pain meds. Now, ideally, you're getting off of those as quickly as possible. Fish oil can be, nature's Advil here. So that can be helpful getting on, after surgery, especially post-surgery once the immediate bleeds and bruising have stopped. Any kind of anti-inflammatory herbs, curcumin is awesome here. But the other thing that I would look at is making sure that you have enough fiber in your diet. So I would be throwing extra fiber, my product extra fiber, into the Paleo-Inspired shake so that you have the bulk you need, because you can get a little constipated with some of those pain meds. And the other thing that I want you to think about is making sure that if you are put on antibiotics, which is quite often what happens when you're having surgery, is to make sure that you're also using Microbiome Balance so that you've got the bacteriophage and probiotics, the pre and probiotics, to help you not just do a scorched earth on all of your good bacteria in your gut microbiome. You got to have that stuff to really make sure that you can absorb your nutrients, have a great mood, lose weight, reduce inflammation, everything. It all starts in the gut, which of course you heard I just made Chef Lance a doctor too. So super critical there. Now, it's time for my favorite part of the show. So, if you've been around in the community at all, you know that gratitude is the way that I start each day. And so one of the big things that we all celebrate on the team, we celebrate success stories and we celebrate praise. We are suckers for a good testimonial or endorsement, and we just have some amazing ones coming through the podcast. And I just want you to know how much, not just me, but our entire team appreciates you when you do this. We all read them. It's a good day at the office, our virtual office, when we get these. And so I just wanted to give a shout out. Now, I thought this was super funny, to Pastry Vanessa. Okay. I was like, Pastry Vanessa. So my go-to nutrition and mindset podcast. I love JJ Virgin. Just read her Miracle Mindset book. The first book I read in 3 days in a long time, which means it was fantastic. I truly believe JJ has it all. Her story and life inspire me every day. I look forward to listening to every podcast and have listened to all of them. Congratulations. I only wish they were longer. They make my day better. one of my favorites is get rid of over 40 fat. Oh, thank you so much. I totally love hearing this, and I super duper appreciate it. And they've been actually getting a little longer. I really tried to make them ride time, drive time podcasts, but we are putting them out twice a week. And our general format now is once a week, an interview with a super cool person. And then the next one is me. I like to do them and record them while I'm on Facebook Live because I do better with an audience. But I've been trying to do that. So if you've got a topic you really want me to cover, let me know and we will put it out there. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I want to remind you that we talked a lot about bone broth on this show today. And here's the deal. All this information's awesome when you put it into action. So my big push and hope for today is that you take this and you start drinking bone broth today, not even tomorrow. I always say don't wait for tomorrow because we know when tomorrow comes. Never, because I've seen firsthand what bone broth can do for me, what's done for my kids, what's done for my clients, and I want that same thing for you. Alrighty, until next time, make it an awesome week. Bye-bye.